Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to NoDQ&A video right here on NoDQ.com, as well as the YouTube channel and NoDQ&A videos affiliate, ringsidenews.com. We are coming off the final Raw of 2015. Got your questions from twitter.com/AaronRift. Let's get started with the first one today, which comes from Isaac Robman, who is the TNA general over at NoDQForums.com. Hey Aaron, was the arrest angle on Raw the worst you've ever seen? I think it was the least believable one they ever had. To be fair, these arrest angles are always very over the top, but this one was even worse than usual. It was pretty ridiculous. Now, with that being said, I did find the segment entertaining, even though I had some issues with it. I mean, first off, you had the officer threatening to arrest Stephanie just because she was yelling at him. Yes, that's funny, but not very realistic at all. And then you had Vince falling down, getting shoved by Roman Reigns and complaining about his neck. The whole segment felt a little awkward. And then you had Vince being arrested and go into the police station or whatever. And as soon as they mentioned Jerry McDevitt, I knew that there's no way the creative team's going to be able to make him look bad. He's definitely going to be getting Vince out that night. And sure enough, Vince got released and came back out and made the match for next week's Raw. So yeah, it was quite over the top, but I give it a pass because it's professional wrestling. But yeah, it was worse than usual. I mean, it's right up there among the most ridiculous segments that WWE has ever produced. It was really silly. And then you have this question here from Extremes Dawn. What did you think of Raw last night, and what's your thoughts on the title match that will take place next week on Raw? I will give WWE credit for at least trying to change up the format of the show a little bit. Now, maybe it was just because half the roster was in Allentown, Pennsylvania, doing a house show. But I like the fact that it wasn't the norm from WWE. We saw some unexpected events on this week's show. We saw Kevin Owens lose to Neville in 15 seconds, which not really crazy about that idea of Owens losing that quickly. Yes, he did beat up Neville after the match, but things like that in general I want to see. I'm not sure if Kevin Owens was the right guy to take a fall like that in 15 seconds, but I like the fact that you have a match ending very quickly out of nowhere. Stuff like that to make the show just a little bit more unpredictable. And I like the opening segment, even though it was very over the top. It was at least done in a fast pace. They went out there, Roman Reigns did not say too much, and the segment moved fairly quickly. It didn't feel like it was dragging on too long. So I did enjoy some parts of Raw. The middle part of the show really dragged for me, and that's usually how it is. That's just the problem with 3-hour Raws. Main event segment was very predictable. Figured Cena would win, but he'd win by DQ, and of course the League of Nations interfering when Cena was about to win. Cena kicking out of everything. And next week it's Roman Reigns versus Sheamus with Vince McMahon as the special guest referee. So if it wasn't clear before that they're trying to recreate the Steve Austin, Vince McMahon storyline and they're trying to make Roman Reigns the new Steve Austin, it's very clear now. All they need next week is Pat Patterson as the ring announcer and Jerry Briscoe as the timekeeper. And maybe in 2 weeks, Roman Reigns will pour cement into Vince's new Corvette. And then maybe in 3 weeks, Vince will fire Reigns, and then Reigns will come back because Shane McMahon returns and signs Reigns to a new 5-year deal. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm just disappointed that we did not get Vince McMahon in a backstage segment in the jail with a convict, something similar to the Mountie going to jail in 1991 at SummerSlam. That would have made for some good comedy, and WWE did not do that. So I was disappointed. There are ways they could have made that really entertaining with Vince being in jail, and they really did nothing. So that was a letdown. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense to have Sheamus versus Roman Reigns next week. Hopefully it's the blow off of that feud, and we'll move on to Triple H versus Roman Reigns, possibly at the Royal Rumble, and then we'll see what happens at WrestleMania. All right, this one comes from Giordi. So the Usos will come down to aid John Cena during a 4-on-1 beatdown, but they won't come to help Reigns in the same situation. Yeah, and where was Dean Ambrose? I'm guessing next week we still won't have Dean Ambrose coming to the aid of Roman Reigns. It doesn't make any sense to me why Dean Ambrose hasn't been helping Roman Reigns, and WWE hasn't really done anything with this whole Roman Reigns Dean Ambrose relationship, other than the fact that they're just best friends. But one would think there's going to be something happening, and then nothing ever does. Right now you got Ambrose in a feud with Kevin Owens, so you got that, but one would think they would do something with Ambrose and Reigns, but I'm guessing it's probably not going to happen. I would be very surprised if Reigns feuded with Ambrose until after WrestleMania, at the very least, if it even happens at all. Alright, this one comes from Juan Carlos. Hey Aaron, Merry Xmas. Do you think Motorhead's Lemmy should be inducted to the Hall of Fame because of his musical legacy to WWE? Please answer in video. I would have preferred if he went in when he was alive, if he was going to be a celebrity induction into the Hall of Fame. I could absolutely see it happening now just because there's all this talk about him and everyone's reminiscing about his work and what he did with WWE, and Triple H might want to do something to honor him by inducting him into the Hall of Fame, something to honor his memory. It would not surprise me at all. Like I said, though, would have been nice if it had happened when he was still alive, but I think there's a good chance he'll go into the Celebrity Hall of Fame at some point in WWE. It's just a matter of time. Triple H will want to honor his friend. Alright, this one comes from Useless Guy. Hey Aaron, The Rock was announced for WrestleMania 32. What are your thoughts and how would you book him on the grandest stage of all? Please answer in video. If The Rock is going to be at WrestleMania, I think it would be best for him to actually wrestle. Now at this point, there's no indication on exactly what his role will be. WWE just announced that he will be there at WrestleMania and showed all the headlines from the media outlets that he's going to be there. And I guess, at the very least, his name being attached to WrestleMania 32 in advance might help a little bit with hype and ticket sales and getting more people into the building. It might help a little bit. I think what would really help was if he was in an actual match, because I'm not sure what you can do to top the previous 2 years. First, you had The Rock in a segment with Steve Austin and Hulk Hogan, and then the following year you had him in the segment with Ronda Rousey. How do you top that, besides him being in an actual match? I guess he could be a special guest referee, and that would probably be your best bet if he's not going to be wrestling. Still, I'd love to see him in a match at WrestleMania. They could do Rock versus Brock, or even Rock versus Roman Reigns. There's possibilities, or even Rock versus Triple H, the match that was rumored when the whole Ronda Rousey angle went down. Something with The Rock getting physically involved. If not wrestling, at the very least have him in a special referee, maybe refereeing Roman Reigns' match. I could see that happening. If he's a guest host, it's been done already. So you got to up the ante. You got to do something different. All right, this next question comes from Heather. With 2015 being such a terrible year with injuries, what will WWE's options be if any more of their top guys get put on the shelf? They always have people from NXT. There's no shortage of guys, even though half the roster was in Allentown. We saw a bunch of guys that haven't been on TV in a very long time. Zack Ryder, Heath Slater. WWE has a very bloated roster right now. They have all these guys on the main roster, plus all the guys in NXT. WWE's problem right now is they're short on top-level guys. They're having to resort to bringing back names from the past, like The Rock. They have Brock Lesnar, who's a part-timer. They brought back John Cena, who is still a top guy, but they cannot rely on him forever, and that's why they're trying to groom Roman Reigns as the next guy to carry the company. That's what WWE needs, is some top-level main eventers, and they're very short on that right now. Seth Rollins was one of the few guys they had, and he's gone now. So there's no shortage of guys to push and build up to the top of the card, but it would have been nice if WWE had been pushing these guys stronger and grooming more guys rather than just focusing on one guy, Roman Reigns. If you had Kevin Owens being booked stronger, if you had Bray Wyatt being booked stronger, Dean Ambrose booked stronger, then you'd have more guys available if something happened to one of your featured attractions for WrestleMania. Alright, this one comes from Karl. Hey Aaron, do you think Tony Chimel deserves more announcing time? I personally think he's better than Lillian. I like Tony Chimel. I think he's a good announcer. I actually miss Justin Roberts a lot. I thought that he did a really good job as the announcer on Raw. Any one of the three of them, I think they're all fine. I don't really have a preference. I think all three of them do very good jobs at announcing. I'm still a Howard Finkel guy, but that's who I grew up with as a kid, watching Howard Finkel and listening to his announcing. But I like Tony Chimel. I definitely feel he should be doing more announcing, and he's had some memorable ring announcing entrances in the past when he would introduce Edge, you know, cracking his voice and all that. You know, Tony Chimel's very entertaining. Alright, this one comes from Sean. Please answer in video. I've been watching the Royal Rumble from 92 through 96 so far. Monsoon and Bobby Heenan are brilliant. Are they the greatest of all time of WWE announcers? I do have an opinion on the commentators, you know, more so than the actual ring announcers. I think Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon were among the greatest announcing teams of all time. I think I would still go with Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross as the greatest announced team of all time, just because of their longevity, and they were announcing during the peak of the business, during the Attitude Era. But during the Golden Era, the 1984 through 1991 period, Monsoon and Heenan were tremendous. I also really liked Monsoon and Jesse Ventura, especially the first 6 WrestleManias. You know, there were times watching those shows that I would be more entertained by the announcing with Monsoon and Ventura than the actual matches. And with Monsoon and Heenan, Monsoon was a perfect straight man to Bobby Heenan as the comedian, telling the jokes, and Monsoon just getting fed up with him. They made a great team. Tremendous chemistry between the two of them. So yeah, Monsoon and Heenan, Monsoon and Ventura were right up there, along with JR and The King is my all-time favorite announced teams. Alright, this one comes from Kevin. What is your overall opinion on Braun Strowman, and how could you see WWE booking him in the near future? Answer in video. I think he's fine, but I just don't find the guy to be all that intimidating looking. I think he has too much of a babyface look. You know, he just doesn't look like a guy that you would be afraid of. And he's not all that great in the ring. He's still very green. I doubt that he's going to be pushed for a very long time in WWE. I think once the Wyatt family is disbanded, he's going to be lost in the shuffle, and WWE will probably make him a comedy figure. He'll be like Kozlov. He'll be the big bumbling giant that does comedy. That's what he'll be doing, and that will probably be the extent of his career in WWE unless he shows some kind of real significant improvement in the ring. I don't see him being a major star in WWE as a heel. Just don't see that happening. Alright, that'll wrap it up for this edition of NoDQ&A video. Thanks as always for watching. Subscribe at youtube.com/NoDQCAW. Tell a friend about NoDQ&A video, and I will see you guys next time for more.